we've got reports that the Miami Heat are circling both Giannis Antetokounmpo and Ja Morant. Michael Porter Jr. may be playing so well that he's working his way out of the Brooklyn Nets and affecting their tank job, and now the Golden State Warriors are ready to move Jonathan Kuminga. Should be no surprise there. The league never sleeps, and neither do we here at NBA Central. We're going to talk about it all and more right after this.
Welcome to the number one place for your daily basketball news and analysis, NBA Central.
What's going on, basketball fans? Welcome to another episode of NBA Central, your number one spot for everything basketball related. I'm the host there, Haize. But more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bull Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go ahead and get into this content for today, y'all. And reportedly, according to Jake Fisher, the Miami Heat are circling both Giannis Antetokounmpo and Ja Morant and looking for a possible big swing to make a win-now move leading into this trade deadline, saying this. While the Heat aren't concerned about their slump, currently on a 3-game skid, the team could be buyers this season with the early success, adopting a new fast-paced offensive philosophy. Funny enough, the style represents that of Memphis Grizzlies, with even Miami having its former coach, Noah LaRoche, on the staff, and Fisher notes that internal discussions have been had about possibly going after Ja Morant. Miami was already shaping into a surprise buyer at this offseason market even more before this week's Giannis headlines. League sources say the Heat, for example, have had internal discussions about Memphis's Ja Morant and how Miami's infrastructure could benefit him. Now, that last part is key, right? A lot has been made about Ja Morant. Sometime, I guess the best way to word it is immaturity at times, right? And the fact that we know the talent that Ja Morant can be on the basketball court. No doubt about that, right? And some things have maybe gone a little bit left. And one thing, we know Heat culture and all that's shaped up to be and talked about. And so the Miami Heat now looking to potentially make a move for Ja Morant could be huge for that team. It's not like the team doesn't need a point guard. You have Norman Powell there now. If you do decide to move Tyler Hero or something in that move, we'll see what the framework ends up being. But reportedly, you guys may know I do a show with the host of Locked On Heat, and he had mentioned that the Miami Heat are not going to pull the trigger until they know exactly what the Giannis Antetokounmpo situation is. Pat Riley has reportedly been interested in Giannis in case Giannis becomes available for the better part of 2 or 3 years at this point in time. So, reportedly, we'll see what happens there, right? Now, the fact of the matter is that Jake Fisher did say this, is that they would need to part with young center Khalil Ware in any potential deal for either side of that. Now, we have heard that they did not make a move for Kevin Durant, for example, because they did not want to move off of Khalil Ware. The question then becomes, is a move for Ja Morant, right, enough to where they would feel comfortable moving on from Khalil Ware? Is that even what the Memphis Grizzlies would want in that trade? Those type of things, right? But the team is willing to part with Andrew Wiggins and Tyler Hero as well, with him not getting an extension that he is considered to be movable, right? And so you look at the Miami Heat right now that, have 14-ish wins on the season. And, we'll see what happens there. They're on a 3-game losing streak. They're trying to avoid, going on a 4-game losing streak when they take on the Orlando Magic on the road. But this is an interesting development here now, right? You look at what Giannis or Ja Morant would really offer for this team, and it all makes sense, right? Of course, Giannis, you don't have to worry about the infrastructure there. Giannis is a player that is much like aligned with like what Pat Riley wants to do as far as the focus on winning and winning now, right? And trying to be in contention for a championship every single year. Ja Morant, you may have to do kind of more as far as rough around the edges. Yes, he's been on some good Memphis Grizzlies team, but never has really been on a contender. So maybe there's some thought process that they would have to adapt him to Heat culture to get used to those type of things, and we shall see there, right? And so now this becomes about what the Miami Heat are willing to part with for Ja Morant. If they still hold true, right? They weren't willing to move on from Khalil Ware. In the case for Kevin Durant, if they don't want to move on from Khalil Ware as well to get Ja Morant, do they have enough pieces that would make sense for the Memphis Grizzlies and what the Memphis Grizzlies would do? Now, personally, if the Grizzlies do move on from Ja, I think you're looking then at a team that's looking to build around Jaren Jackson Jr. They have Cedric Howard, who is one of the best rookies in this draft class. Has had some down games, but still a very promising player in this draft class. You got Jalen Wells down there as well. If you were to add Tyler Hero and Wiggins as expiring, the Miami Heat can give up some picks as well. Would that be something that entices them, right? And that's a question that we'd have to find the answer to. But this is something to really look out for. We already know what Giannis is. Adding him to Heat culture would be kind of exactly keep the same thing going. Ja would offer a little bit more of a, you have to adapt probably, but we've seen players adapt to Heat culture before. Like you have Eric Spoelstra's your superstar on that team, right? Pat Riley, we know what he commands in that front office, and as far as him getting players in that fit with Heat culture. So you have those things that you have to ask and look for there, and maybe they feel confident enough and comfortable enough that that's the move that they want to make. But the Miami Heat now are a team that looks like they are worth watching for at this trade deadline to make a move. And considering that, Jake Fisher points out that they are looking to make win now moves, that puts a lot of, potential there on what they're going to want to do. So we'll see what happens there, what the Miami Heat decide to do. I want to hear from you guys, though. Ja Morant, Giannis Antetokounmpo, do you think that either one of these players makes sense for the Miami Heat? Which way would you want to see the Miami Heat go, either for Ja or Giannis Antetokounmpo? Seems like Giannis may be more of an offseason thing, where Ja may be more of a thing that's available now leading into this trade deadline. Let's see. But it does look like this trade deadline is leading up to have some surprise moves. And one of those could include Michael Porter Jr. Michael Porter Jr. is having himself a season down in Brooklyn, and one that could be actually ruining their tank job. Now, we've seen this happen with teams before. You acquire a player when you're trying to reset your roster. That player comes in and they play great, better than you were expecting, and maybe you start winning a little bit more games than you were expecting to. Now, they're 6-17 on the season, so it's not like they're winning a lot of games, but Michael Porter Jr. was always going to be one of those players that I don't think anybody thought that he was long there for the Brooklyn Nets. He's able to get up as many shots as he wants to, basically, on that Brooklyn Nets team, and for what it's worth, he's playing really well. Now, there's always the history of injuries there, those type of concerns with Michael Porter Jr., but he has 1 year remaining on his deal. After this one, he's getting paid $40 million in the last year. That's next season, $38.3 million this season. So now it becomes a thing about, is Michael Porter Jr., a player that teams around the league can look at and say is somebody who's obtainable. He's only missed 4 games this season. He's averaging 25.8 points per game, the most of his NBA career, on 18 shots, 49% shooting from the field, 39% shooting from three, 81% shooting from the free throw line, and he's averaging 7 rebounds a game as well with 3 assists. Like, Michael Porter Jr. is putting up really good numbers. And so now it becomes about, with a player like that at 27 years old, keep in mind, I know Michael Porter Jr. has had injuries and all those type of things, but this is still a very young player as well, even though he's been in the league for a little while. Is this one of those players that a team could look to acquire, or could it be fool's gold, right? Could it be one of those things that he's putting up big numbers on a team that wasn't expected to do so? It's not like he's taking 20, 25 shots a game. That 18 on a good team is probably going to go down to closer to 13 to 14 shots per game. But with the efficiency that he's shooting at right now, it would still make a lot of sense that teams can look at it. He can play that 3, he can play the 4, that he can help this team. And the Nets could now have another player that they can look at and acquiring more assets for. When you look at it, when he's on the court for this Brooklyn Nets team, they have a point differential of plus 11.6. They are scoring 12.3 points more per 100 possessions when he's on the court as well. Their effective field goal shooting percentage goes up by 6%. The turnover percentage goes down by almost 4% as well. This is a player that is playing very effective for this Brooklyn Nets team. And that's all it takes for a team to look at and say, hey, he was playing off Giannis, right? I'm sorry, not Giannis. He was playing off Jokic, and in that Denver Nuggets team. But this is also a player that did contribute to a title-winning team. So when you look at it, like, could teams be interested in Michael Porter Jr.? Now, it's not going to be an easy acquisition. The $38 million is not ridiculous anymore by the kind of the modern contracts that we're seeing, but it's not necessarily the easiest contract move either. Now, for teams that have some expirings or something like that, have a draft pick and want to make a go at it, add a decent player to it, it could be there for Michael Porter Jr. to move, for them to make a move for Michael Porter Jr., and we'll see. Now, Jordy Fernandez talked about MPJ, and he said this. He makes his teammates better. He doesn't play in a selfish way. That probably comes from Denver. The shots he creates, when he's able to make every shot possible, when he spaces the floor properly, and when he cuts with space and he's constantly moving, then he rebounds the ball. That's just very good for everybody else. So all those things are important, and they don't go unnoticed. Now, are they going unnoticed around the NBA is the question there, and we'll see. He became the first Nets player to record 30-plus points, 5-plus rebounds, and 5-plus three-pointers in 3 straight games, and he's making history there. So, he was kind of looked at as an afterthought after the Denver Nuggets traded him away because he was going to the Brooklyn Nets, and he didn't necessarily have the strongest season or playoffs for them either, right? But he's playing at an all-star level, what it takes right now, albeit on a bad team. And now there's some questions on, if that makes the most sense for them. You look at it as well. Over the last 13 games, MPJ is averaging 28 points, the 10th most in the NBA as a whole, right? And he has shown himself to be a player that can fit in a lot of different types of offenses. He's putting up career best statistics. And this is a Nets team that we all know is thinking. We all know doesn't want to win a lot of basketball games this year. And so because of that, it would make some sense for them to move him. They got some other players they can look to move as well. But, hey, MPJ is having a great season, and that could lead him on maybe going from the Brooklyn Nets and being out in purgatory to actually landing on a winning team that's trying to acquire him to help them with their playoff push. But let me know what you guys think on that down below. Last topic, more trades. The Golden State Warriors are now expected to explore Jonathan Kuminga trade talks. Now, they did shut down Jonathan Kuminga for a game, right? And we know that he becomes eligible for a trade on January 15th, right? So that's about 3 weeks away from that. Now, I don't expect him not to play every game between now and then, but when Jonathan Kuminga signed his 3-year, $46.8 million contract, and they didn't get the player option in that, we always knew that this was going to be something that helped the Golden State Warriors facilitate a trade for Jonathan Kuminga. That was the speculation always by me and other pundits. And so now it makes some sense that they are moving forward in that direction to be able to be willing and setting themselves up to move Jonathan Kuminga. This is a Warriors team that isn't terrible, right? Now, I don't think they're a championship contender either. Now, Steph has missed some time. Jimmy looks good at times as well. The 13-12 on the season, 1 game above 500. But with the right trade, whether it's to acquire a big or more shooting or whatever it is, that could really help their playoff run. And so I'm not surprised to hear that Jonathan Kuminga, is on the trade block, and the Warriors are open to trading Kuminga because that's what I expected when he signed his deal. That's exactly, not to toot my own horn. I think that was pretty obvious, right? I think that was obvious. We heard the Kings talk and how restrictive it was to try to move Jonathan Kuminga with the current situation. You re-sign him, and because of the deal that they signed him to and when he signed, it removes that so they can still move him and have a little bit more flexibility to do so, not be held to the base year compensation rule if it would have been a sign and trade this offseason. So, that puts you in a spot where the Golden State Warriors could try to move on from Jonathan Kuminga. And honestly, it makes a lot of sense for this Warriors team, and I think for Kuminga as well. The Warriors have never been a team, or Steve Kerr's never really been the biggest believer in Jonathan Kuminga. That's one of the things that we've seen, and that's hurt Jonathan Kuminga's career. At times, he hasn't really fit in with the way the Warriors want to play. He's an on-ball dominant player. But for what it's worth, he's had some big games this season. Now, he's averaging 12 points per game, the lowest total that he's had since his second year in the league. But we've seen him have the big scoring explosions. We've seen the start of the season for him when he was kind of unleashed a little bit more, and we thought at that point in time, maybe they were trying to feature him a little bit, right? So Kuminga being on the trade block, not a surprise, shouldn't be a surprise to very many people. And we now see what comes of that and if he ends up being moved. Let me know what you guys think on that down below. Last topic of the day before we get up out of here. Franz Wagner is on the injury reserve. He did avoid a serious injury with his ankle, but he is going to be sidelined for an indefinite amount of time right now with a high left ankle sprain, the team announced, today. And so this injury did happen in Sunday's game against the New York Knicks. He jumped up and tried to get a lob attempt, came down on a Knicks player's leg, and there you go, and that happened, right? So luckily he avoided a major injury, and this is a Orlando Magic team that has started to turn some things around for them this season after a little bit of a rough start. And, not to say that they still aren't where people thought that they would be, based off of their 14-10 on the season, but they're starting to look a little bit better, right? And that's this. And so this is kind of what derailed their season last year, injuries and those type of things. But this is a team that's quietly won 4 out of the last 6 games, right? They did lose that game against the New York Knicks. They're coming into a difficult part of their schedule where they have Miami and Denver over this week, and it's going to be unfortunate not to have Franz in that. You're going to need players like Desmond Bane to step up hugely. Jalen Suggs is going to have to step up with Franz Wagner out. But, overall, it's good that he's not going to miss, the majority of the season. He doesn't have to have surgery or anything like that. I'm sure that the Orlando Magic are ready to get him back on the court, and they're going to be chomping at the bit for that. But wanted to give that update as well as that dropped not too long ago. But that's it, man. So to kind of recap everything, the trade season is shaping up to be a wild one, and maybe one of the more unexpected ones. I don't know if we're going to see like the big name superstar level trades, but there are going to probably be some names that are moved that shocks a lot of people. Ja Morant, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Michael Porter Jr., Jonathan Kuminga. These are just some of the names to be added with Trae Young and other players that we've talked about over the season that could be moved as well. Make sure you guys hit that like button and subscribe button as well. Drop your thoughts on what you think could happen with the players that we mentioned today. Other than that, you can follow us at NBA Central Pod. You send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, NBA Central Show at gmail.com. And then lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We are the number one spot for everything basketball related, but that is thanks to you, lovely and beautiful people. And like I like to end every episode on, catch you guys the next time I feel like making a video. Probably tomorrow. Peace, y'all.
This has been a presentation of the Breaks Media.